I never expected my daughter's whisper would expose a 100 million scam. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was just another Monday morning. The sun streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the worn table where I sipped my lukewarm coffee. Clatter from the TV filled the air, a news anchor's voice blending with the low hum of my thoughts. My mind was heavy, battling the ache of worry over our family's finances, the weight of unpaid bills pressing down on my chest like a leaden blanket. I caught glimpses of my daughter, Lily, with her bright eyes and curious heart, playing quietly under the table. Then, it happened. A small, innocent sound, her whisper, that shook the very foundation of our lives. "Mommy, why do they hide the money?" I froze. The question hung in the air, thick with tension. It was strange, eerie even, coming from the lips of my 6-year-old. I leaned in closer, my heart racing. What did she know? What had she heard? Growing up, my parents always told me to trust my instincts. But how could I trust my own thoughts when they were clouded by uncertainty? My husband, Mark, stood just outside, pacing with a furrowed brow, oblivious to the storm brewing inside our home. Losing my job had pushed us to the edge, desperation making us grasp for any lifeline. The mention of money felt like a grenade, ready to explode, tension wrapped around us like an invisible chain, tightening with each passing moment. Lily then pointed toward the window, eyes wide. "The man in the black car said he would help." My heart dropped. Panic coursed through my veins. A man in a black car? Who was he? Why was he near our home? I swallowed hard, my throat dry and tight. "What did he say, sweetie?" I barely managed to whisper, my voice trembling. Uncertainty lingered, but curiosity gripped me. Days blurred together as I searched for clues, muffled conversations around the neighborhood, whispers at the grocery store, and furtive glances. Everyone seemed to know something I didn't. My heart raced as I wrestled with the concept of betrayal. Mark had been acting strange lately, his long hours at work had begun to feel like something more. Was he hiding something from me? Dark clouds gathered outside. I needed to know the truth, but fear clawed at my insides. The sensation of dread grew stronger, wrapping around me like a vice. What if everything I trusted was built on lies? I tried to push the thought away, but it screamed for attention that I needed answers. But how could I confront Mark without breaking apart? By the time evening fell, silence enveloped our home. It felt disquieting. My thoughts whirled as night descended, shadows creeping into every corner. That's when I found her, hunched over, clutching a piece of paper, the whisper still echoing in my mind. The truth was close, but fear kept me from reaching it. I took a deep breath, my trembling hand reaching for the light switch, illuminating the crumpled paper sheet hidden. My heart stopped when I recognized a name. One that sent chills down my spine. Was I really prepared for what I might uncover? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The light from the lamp flickered as I stared at the crumpled paper in Lily's small hands. My heart raced, pulse quickening as if it were trying to warn me of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. The name on that paper, Richard Caldwell, was equally familiar and terrifying. My thoughts spun wildly, recalling the rumors I'd heard about Caldwell, an influential businessman with vast connections and a reputation that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to cross him. "Mommy?" Lily's voice trembled. She set the paper down, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and innocence. I knelt beside her, gathering my thoughts, my breath hitching in my throat, mingling with the moist air of our small living room. "Where did you find this?" I tried to keep my voice level, though it wavered slightly. Her soft fingers traced the edges of the paper, a sign of both comfort and confusion. "The man in the black car gave it to me when I was playing outside," she said, matter-of-factly. The walls of reason crumbled around me. I could hardly process the implication of her words. Who was this man? What did he want with my little girl? My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the front door creaking open. Mark entered, his face drawn, and I instantly felt that familiar twist of distrust in my gut. But before I could question him, he froze. His gaze landed on the paper, and a shadow crossed his brow. The air grew thick with unspoken tension. "What's that?" he asked carefully, his voice casual but laced with an underlying urgency that made my heart plummet. "Just a drawing, Daddy," Lily replied, her sweet tone almost naive. She seemed unaware of the danger lurking just beneath our surface. "I think it's time for bed, sweet girl," I said, my voice firm, masking my rising anxiety. As she climbed the stairs, leaving us in the dim light, I turned to Mark. "What is going on? Who's Richard Caldwell?" He inhaled sharply, a look of horror creeping into his eyes. "I didn't want you to find out like this." "What do you mean? What does he have to do with anything?" Every word dripped with desperation. "Caldwell is involved in things, really bad things," he admitted, rubbing his forehead as if the weight of the world hung upon him. "I was trying to protect you, protect Lily. I got involved with his company, thinking I could secure better financial stability for us. And now?" I prompted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Now, I'm in too deep, and I can't get out." The despair in his eyes cut deeper than any knife. "I accidentally stumbled onto something they're doing, something illegal. And when I tried to pull away, I got threats. They know we have a family, and they won't hesitate to use Lily to get to me." Fear gripped my heart like a vice, the reality of our predicament washing over me in cold waves. "What do you mean they know? Who? Why?" "I've been trying to gather evidence to take them down, but it's more dangerous than I realized. Now, they're on to me," and Lily, my mind raced to the whispers of my daughter and the conversation we just had. Had she unknowingly walked into a trap? The man in the black car wasn't just a passerby, he was involved in something insidious that threatened to dismantle everything I held dear. A warm light flickered outside our window, illuminating a figure standing next to the black car that had visited our home. I moved closer to the glass, my breath caught in my throat as I spotted him. The man was leaning against his vehicle, his demeanor casual, but his eyes trained on our house with a predatory focus. I could feel the heat of anxiety rising with each second. "I have to go outside," I said, my voice trembling. I needed answers, and something instinct told me he had them. "Wait!" Mark called after me, grasping my arm. "It's dangerous. You can't put yourself at risk like this." But fear had already gripped me. I had to confront whatever lurked in the shadows. I pulled away from his grasp and opened the door. As I stepped outside, a sudden wave of cold washed over me. The man's gaze turned from the house to me. His expression was unreadable, a mix of amusement and something darker. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice quivering but challenging. He took a step forward, an unsettling grin spreading across his face. "I think we need to have a little chat about your husband." What had I stepped into? The darkness of uncertainty closed in, wrapping around me tighter than ever before. The air thickened, my heart racing as I realized that my life had just become an intricate dance with danger. Where was hope in this storm? Then, as he spoke again, I felt the knot in my stomach tighten further. A revelation of a horrific nature lay just ahead, and I might not be prepared for what was to come. The cold night air wrapped around me like a vice as I stood resolute on the porch, inches from the man whose very presence sent tremors through my frame. His smile never faltered, but the glint in his eyes was sharp and unforgiving, like a predator sizing up its prey. "Have we met?" I asked, the quiver in my voice barely concealed. I had to project an air of confidence, of strength, even as I felt the walls around my resolve begin to crack. "Not yet," he replied, his tone mocking. "But your husband has made quite the impression on me. A real hero, going after the big bad wolf. He just doesn't know how to play with fire without getting burned." I swallowed hard, every instinct urging me to retreat, to grasp for the safety of our home. But an inexplicable force, call it maternal instinct, or perhaps sheer desperation, anchored me in place. "What do you want with him? With us?" I challenged, my chest tightening as I thought of Lily, sleeping innocently upstairs, blissfully unaware of the growing storm encasing us all. "Let us say I'm here to deliver a message," he replied casually, leaning against his car as though we were engaged in mundane conversation rather than standing at the precipice of something far more sinister. "Mark is in over his head, and it would be wise of you to convince him to pull out while he still can." "Or what?" The word escaped me in a rush, a frantic defense mechanism against the strength of my fear. "What happens if he doesn't?" He tilted his head, the glimmer of his predatory smile sharpening. "Well, I wouldn't want to ruin the surprise, now would I? But let us say, there are consequences for defiance. Consequences that could reach far beyond just him." Panic threatened to swallow me whole, but I grasped at the fraying threads of my courage. "You don't scare me," I said, although my voice faltered slightly. My mind raced, piecing together fragments of the conversation and the blatant implications hanging in the air. He straightened, the charisma of a seasoned manipulator tightening around me. "I do not need to scare you. Mark's actions will do that quite nicely." "Why are you telling me this?" I pressed, desperate for a glimmer of compassion buried beneath layers of malice. "What do you gain by playing these games with our lives?" "Because, my dear, this is more than a game, this is business." His smirk faded into a look of cold severity. "Mark sought to interfere with a very lucrative operation, and this business? It plays rough. You know nothing, so consider this your lucky day. I'm not interested in dragging innocent bystanders into the muck. But don't be fooled, Mark is walking a thin line, and the law of the jungle will prevail." My mind spun with the implications. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined, and an inextricable bond between Mark's choices and our safety revealed itself. A shiver traced down my spine, as I ventured a glance back at the house where Lily slept, completely oblivious to the danger lurking outside. "Don't you dare touch her," I hissed, anger and protectiveness igniting into flames. "Oh, darling," he replied smoothly, "I don't want to touch her. I want to ensure she has the happiest of childhoods so long as you ensure your husband understands his position." Before I could retort, the sound of gravel crunching underfoot sent panic swirling in my chest. Behind me, Mark, pale and frantic, rushed out of the house, eyes frantic with a mixture of anger and fear at the scene laid before him. "Stay away from her!" he shouted, fists clenched, as he rushed toward us, but the man only chuckled, suppressing the faintest hint of amusement. "Always the gallant hero," he sneered. "Your wife was just getting some valuable advice. Perhaps you should pay heed, Mark. The noose around your family is tightening. Better watch your next move." And with that, he stepped back into the shadows, his figure dissolving into the night, leaving a palpable tension in the air and questions that spiraled into the silence left in his wake. "Did he hurt you?" Mark asked frantically, his hands trembling as they reached for my shoulders. "No," I breathed, still reeling from the confrontation. "But he knows everything, Mark. He knows you're in trouble, and he made it clear if you don't step back, Lily is at risk." An expression of anguish unfurled across his face, and for the first time, I saw the weight of his decisions reflected in his eyes. "What have I done?" His voice cracked, and in that moment, I recognized a familiar vulnerability beneath the guise of the sturdy protector. "I don't know how to fix this," I confessed, my voice barely a whisper as a renewed surge of fear settled in the pit of my stomach. "We're not safe anymore. Just then, a thought flickered to life like a long-buried ember awakening back into flame. What if we go to the police? They might help us. Mark shook his head vehemently. No. I can't let them get involved. It will only escalate things further. We need to find a way out of this ourselves. My heart sank at his refusal, the glimmer of hope extinguished by the very real reality of our situation. Could we truly escape the suffocating grasp of Richard Caldwell-S. Webb? We stood there, clinging to each other in a shared whirlpool of despair, trying to comprehend the unfathomable depths of the darkness ahead. But as I felt Mark's heart pounding against my chest, it registered that we had a mission for Lily, for our family. We couldn't back down now. But just then, from the depths of my pocket, a sudden vibration pulled me from desperation. The familiar chime echoed in the silence, and my heart plummeted as I recognized it, a text from an unknown sender. Don't think I'm done with you yet. You might want to keep an eye on your daughter. The words, cold and taunting, sent a chill coursing through me, and a terrified realization dawned. The shadows were closing in, and their reach now encompassed the most precious part of my world. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering against the porch. My heart raced as I reached down to retrieve it, but Mark's grip tightened on my arm, pulling me closer to him. What is it? Who's texting you? His brow furrowed in concern, yet I could see the flicker of dread in his eyes, mirroring the whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. I inhaled sharply, trying to compose myself as I glanced at the screen. Each word felt like a hot brand against my skin. It's someone who knows about Lily. They warned me about keeping an eye on her. A low growl escaped Mark's throat. Damn it! How could this happen? His fists clenched and unclenched at his sides, and I could see the battle raging within him between the desire to protect us and the fear that overwhelmed his every move. I could hardly breathe with the weight of his despair pressing down on my chest like a stone. We need to stay calm and think this through. Calm? His voice edged on the brink of panic. Our daughter is in danger. How can I stay calm when there's a threat hanging over her head? Tension crackled between us, and I could feel my own frustration bubbling up. Yelling, "Won't fix anything? What do you suggest we do? Run blindly into the night with no plan?" He didn't reply immediately, his gaze moving past me toward the darkened tree line, where Richard's shadow had dissolved into nothingness just moments before. The air was thick with uncertainty, and I could see the despair slowly draining the color from Mark's face. But beneath it all, I saw flashes of something else, a flicker of determination, perhaps. "I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe," he finally said, his voice steadier than before. I nodded dumbly, though my heart sank. But how? He knows everything, Mark. We can't underestimate his reach. Just then, a sound from the upper floor echoed through the veil of anxiety enveloping us. The gentle creak of floorboards, and the soft patter of little feet. My heart flipped, a wave of poignant love crashing over me in stark contrast to the dread pooling in my gut. Lily emerged from the hallway, her tiny frame illuminating the shadows of our home. Her hair illuminated by the pale glow of the night as she rubbed sleep from her eyes. "Mommy? Daddy? What's wrong?" Mark immediately knelt to her level, his expression strained but trying to mask his worry. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just grown-up stuff." Lily's eyes flitted between us, sensing the tension that hung heavily in the air. "You look scared," she said quietly before turning her gaze to me, searching for reassurance. What was I supposed to say? I had never felt more unprepared, more vulnerable. So, I took a deep breath and knelt beside Mark. "We're just having a little talk, honey. Everything is okay." I brushed her hair back from her forehead, trying to summon a smile. "Want to help us make some cookies?" The innocence in her face momentarily lifted my spirit. "Chocolate chip?" She squealed, the sparkle in her voice contagious. "Yes. Chocolate chip." I grinned at her excitement, cherishing that precious sparkle which, in the midst of chaos, felt like a lifeline. Little did she know that her laughter was the only thing preventing the impending storm from completely overwhelming us. As we made our way to the kitchen, I tried to focus on the rhythm of our routine, the soft rustle of flour and sugar, the clatter of mixing bowls. Each moment was filled with the scent of vanilla and chocolate, an aromatic refuge that held a semblance of normalcy. Yet even with the tasks in front of us, I couldn't shake the gnawing anxiety. The clock ticked ominously, each second pressing against the boundaries of our security. I caught Mark's eyes, filled with that familiar blend of fear and the insatiable desire for redemption. This feels wrong," he whispered as he peeled the wrappers from the chocolate chips. "I should be working to shield you both, not baking cookies." "We can't let him steal our lives, Mark," I pleaded softly. "We need to fight back in our own way. Lily deserves to be a kid even amidst the madness." His gaze fell momentarily. The weight of his burden seemingly too heavy for one man to bear. "And what if he shows up again? What if I silenced him with a firm touch against his arm. We have to believe in each other the way we always have. We have to fight for Lily." A flicker of understanding passed between us, etched with resolve. We continued mixing the dough, and in that oddly sacred process, we tried to usher in just a little light. As the cookies baked, the warmth filled the house, and Lily giggled, offering spontaneous distractions with fervor that left my heart aching. Yet my peace felt precarious. But just as Mark and I began discussing our next steps, a chilling sound pierced through the warmth. The front door creaked open. My heart stopped as Mark and I exchanged frantic glances. Had I locked it? Before we could manage a word, a heavy figure stepped into our home, silhouetted by the dim light spilling from the kitchen. Richard stood there, an unwavering presence at the threshold, a sinister smile etched across his face. The air grew thick as he surveyed the scene, the laughter echoing with an eerie incongruence to the malevolence of his very being. "I see you're having a family night. I hope you don't mind me crashing this delightful party." My heart raced as I instinctively moved in front of Lily, but there'd be no way to shield her from this darkness. A whirlpool of fear and uncertainty spiraled within me, and all I could think was, we were not safe, none of us were. The warm aroma of cookies faded into the chill of his presence, and dread settled over us, heavy and suffocating, as I realized the fight was only just beginning. The tension in the air was palpable, a sudden shift that felt like stepping into an icy abyss. My heart raced, each beat pounding in my ears. Richard's smile widened, a jagged grin that sent a tremor of fear coursing through me. "Look at this cozy scene," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Baking cookies while danger lurks at your door. How quaint." His eyes flickered to Lily, and the way he looked at her twisted my stomach into knots. "Get out," Mark growled, stepping forward protectively. The rawness in his voice told me he was both furious and terrified, a volatile cocktail of emotion threatening to explode. Now, Richard replied, his tone patronizing as he held up his hands in mock surrender. "I'm just here to chat. Shouldn't a father be curious about the whispers he hears?" Every fiber of my being screamed at me to stand tall, to somehow protect my family from this intruder. "You're not welcome here, Richard. You need to leave." My voice quivered, infused with a courage that felt like a mask, barely holding my fear at bay. "Ah, but I'm so entertained," he said, his gaze still fixed on Lily, who stood confused and frightened behind me, clutching my hand tightly. "Especially by what your little girl might be learning in this little charade you call a home." I glanced back at Lily, her wide eyes filling with unspoken questions, a stark reminder of the innocence Richard was preying upon. "Lily, sweetie, why don't you go to your room and finish your drawing?" I urged gently, feeling the urgency to shield her from the storm brewing. "But I want to stay," she protested, confusion furrowing her little brow. "Go. Please, now." I insisted, my tone sharper than I intended, desperation seeping through the cracks of my demeanor. With a hesitant step back, she retreated towards the hallway, a flicker of uncertainty lingering in her gaze. My heart broke as I let her go, knowing that my world was trembling on the precipice of chaos. As the soft thud of her feet faded, I turned back to Richard, forcing my body into a defensive stance. "What do you want?" My voice held a false steadiness, my mind racing to formulate a plan for how to stop this man. He chuckled, the sound brimming with malice. "Want? That's amusing. It's more about what I need. You see, your daughter's honesty is quite revealing," he said, glancing sideways, remembering something as if savoring a bitter taste. "The whispers have a way of illuminating the truth." Mark shifted, disbelief flashing in his eyes. "What do you mean? What truth?" "Oh, just the little details about certain dealings," Richard replied, his gaze dark and foreboding. "Details that could turn a profit of 100 million, just like that." He snapped his fingers as if the act itself could make it true. "What are you talking about?" I scarcely recognized my own voice, filled with mounting dread as the pieces began to shift. "Your little girl," Richard continued, his gaze lingering back to me, twinkling with a sinister mirth. "She's been quite the informant without even knowing it. That innocent little whisper she let slip, why, it makes for the perfect pivot. It could expose the entire operation." "What are you trying to say?" Mark stepped forward, tension rippling through him like an earthquake. "Let's just say I'll have to keep an eye out, 1ti. A potential rat among the bigger players is inconvenient. But one whisper from a child? A delightful bonus." The realization hit me, sharp and stinging. Could Lily, in her innocent curiosity, have inadvertently been a part of something so dangerous? The implications sunk beneath my skin like cold steel. Without warning, Richard raised a brow and stepped closer, invading our space. "You're going to need to be careful. One misstep, and the stakes double." Mark's fists clenched, his body vibrating with restrained rage. "You think you can threaten us? That will roll over and let you dictate our lives? You're mistaken." Richard laughed, a low, rumbling sound that felt like a dark echo in the hollowness of our home. "Oh, I'm not threatening. I'm merely stating a fact. You won't be safe unless you play your cards right. I wouldn't want something tragic to happen." The weight of his words crashed down on me, sending tendrils of fear coiling around my heart. My mind raced. Could we really get out of this alive? "You don't know what we're willing to do," I asserted, trying to reclaim my power. "But I believe you know how far you'll go for her." Richard's expression turned almost contemplative, a reflection of our tenuous bond of hope and love. "Tell me, how much are you willing to lose?" The room seemed to tilt beneath me, the ground growing unstable as hope felt like a cruel jest. Just as the atmosphere thickened with dread and uncertainty, a sound echoed from the corner of the house, a careless clatter followed by a tiny yelp. "Lily!" My voice rang out, panic surging through me. She had returned, clutching a cookie sheet. "I wanted to bring you both some cookies." My stomach dropped at the sight of Richard's eyes narrowing, a predator reveling in an unexpected twist. "Ah, you see? This changes everything," he purred, his gaze locking onto her innocent face. "Just like the game it is, my dear. Are you ready to play?" In that moment, I realized we teetered on the edge of an irredeemable chasm. The beams of light faded as darkness swirled closer, the frightening specter of choice pressing down on us. How could we protect Lily from the very truth that had slipped through her innocent lips? From a man who thrived in shadows, who twisted the purest of intentions into weapons? The game had shifted dramatically, and we were left reeling in its wake, unsure of our next move. And all the while, the clock ticked away, counting down the seconds until the world as we'd known it would change into something we could scarcely imagine. The atmosphere in the room thickened, heavy with uncertainty and the sheer weight of the moment. Richard's eyes glinted like shards of ice as he regarded Lily, who stood blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her. Each second stretched out like an eternity as my heart raced, an urgent rhythm pushing me toward an instinctive need to protect her. "Cookies, you say?" Richard's voice dripped with feigned delight, a calculated mask over the predatory intent lurking beneath. "Aren't you just the sweetest?" He reached for a warm cookie, the gesture both innocuous and sinister as it wrapped around my frazzled nerves. "Maybe you could share your little secrets with me, Lily. Secrets have a way of revealing themselves, don't they?" "Stop!" I shouted, my voice cracking from a blend of fright and determination, forcing myself to step forward. "You don't speak to her like that." The fragile courage I clung to felt precarious, but as Richard's gaze narrowed on me, I knew there was no retreating now. "Such bravery," he said with a chilling laugh, reminiscent of the predators from the stories I read to Lily before bedtime. "But it's misplaced, as it always is. Power lies in knowledge. Think about that. You know it, deep down." He leaned forward, an unsettling calm overtaking him. "Unless you want to see how much havoc I can cause." Mark shifted beside me, muscles taut and ready. We had to protect Lily, that had to be our priority. I turned to her, forcing a smile that felt like a fragile facade. "Sweetheart, why don't you take those cookies to the kitchen? I think they'll taste better with some milk." Lily's innocent face scrunched in confusion, clinging to the moment, the cookie sheet wavering in her small hands. "But I want to stay with you." "Lily, please," I implored, my heart twisting as I felt the urge to sweep her into my arms and shield her from this man. "It's just an adult conversation. You know how grown-ups can get." Richard straightened, reveling in the moment. "Ah yes, you'd hate for her to hear anything that might frighten her, wouldn't you? After all, children should remain blissfully ignorant of the world's darker truths." "Yes. Exactly," I exclaimed, my desperation growing as I urged her away. "Now go, please. I'll be there in a moment." With a hesitance that felt contagious, Lily turned and slowly retreated, casting one last glance back at me. Her sweet, trusting eyes filled with questions I longed to answer, but all I could do was give her a reassuring nod. The moment she disappeared down the hallway, I turned back to Richard, fury swirling in my heart. "You think you can manipulate us?" Mark stepped forward, the fire within him igniting. "We want to let you take our daughter, or use her against us." Richard smirked, unabashed by our defiance. "I don't want your daughter. Not in that way. I want your obedience." He waved his hands dismissively, casting my resolve aside like paper in the wind. "But you stand at a crossroad now. The information Lily has, it could be a ticket to safety, or it could drown you whole if the wrong people get wind. Why should we trust you?" I spat, embers of anger weaving through my voice. "You're a coward hiding behind that facade. You think you can intimidate us into submission." "Oh, I don't need to intimidate," Richard replied, a satisfied gleam in his eye as he surveyed us. "I just need you to understand the stakes." He paused, relishing every syllable. "And trust me, they're high." "How will we know you won't hurt her?" Mark demanded, stepping closer still, the tension between us taut as a drawn bowstring. Richard cocked his head, leaning against the wall like he owned the place. "Hurt her? My dear Mark, I have no interest in causing Lily harm. But you must know others may not share my noble inclinations." His words hung in the air like poison, chilling the very marrow in our bones. A sudden thought struck me like a lightning bolt. "What do you mean others?" The corner of Richard's lips curled up, devoid of warmth. "If I were you, I'd concern myself with keeping her close. There are stronger players in this game than I, players who get their hands dirty without a second thought. A whisper of lies could unravel your lives within hours." A knot twisted painfully in my stomach, realizing that we had stumbled upon something much larger than ourselves. What had Lily inadvertently entered us into? What unseen forces loomed in the shadows? "Get out!" Mark barked, fists clenched at his sides. "You've overstayed your welcome." Richard raised an eyebrow, a flicker of interest crossing his expression. "Ah, But desperate times call for desperate measures, wouldn't you agree? What if I said I could provide protection? Maybe even directions to a way out? What kind of protection? My voice wavered, curiosity and fear grappling for dominance within me. There are options, you see. Options for those who are willing to play this game correctly, he admitted, the glint in his eye growing sharper. But you'll have to consider how much are you willing to risk. You could even be the ones pulling strings if you're clever enough. We exchanged glances, silent deliberations spiraling through the air. I felt crushed beneath the weight of his propositions, realizing that either way, the innocence of our lives had already been shattered. Suddenly, we heard light footsteps padding toward us, then the jingle of Lily's voice, innocent and bright. "Mom! I forgot to ask if I could draw you a picture for dinner." Richard's demeanor shifted seamlessly as he turned to Lily, masking his threat with brotherly affection. "Of course, dear. But we were just talking about how special your drawings are. Show me, won't you?" Without waiting for my response, she darted back into the room, excited and blissful, clutching her coloring pencils. The pieces slid into place even as confusion clouded my mind. I had thought I was protecting her, but the danger had returned with full force. In that moment of blissful innocence meeting malice, I felt the ground beneath me shatter even more, the landscape shifting into something far more sinister than I could have imagined. How were we meant to navigate this world where whispers held more weight than knowledge and where the shadows circled ever closer, testing every commitment I had made to my family? Just as the reality of it began to sink in, Richard turned sharply toward the door. "But alas, I must take my leave. Just remember, the game has only begun," he said, tossing a wry smile over his shoulder as he stepped back into that unyielding darkness, leaving us with the echoes of choices we were yet to make and the silhouettes of dangers lurking close at hand. I in his wake, the house felt emptier, the silence swallowed whole by the gravity of our struggle. The air grew heavier with unsaid words, and I knew we teetered on the edge. How long before our lives would change beyond recognition? Would Lily remain untouched, or would her whispers cost us everything we loved? With the weight of the world resting on me, I braced for the shadows looming around the corners of my heart and mind, determined to shield my daughter from a reality crumbling around us. But with uncertainty swirling, I couldn't help but tremble at the unknown, at the fragility of our existence hanging by a mere thread. As the door clicked shut behind Richard, a heaviness settled over the room. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs, an incessant reminder of the danger that lingered just outside our walls. I turned to Lily, who was scribbling animatedly on a notepad, completely oblivious to the tension that had just filled the air. "Sweetheart," I said, forcing a softness into my voice that was difficult to muster. "What are you drawing?" Her head bobbed enthusiastically as she looked up, her bright eyes shining with innocent joy. "It's a picture of our family. Look, I gave you a big smile." She held up her masterpiece, a chaotic swirl of colors with stick figures that vaguely resembled us. My heart warmed momentarily as I stared at the crude lines, but it quickly sank again when I remembered the monster that had just left. "That's beautiful, Lily," I managed, fighting back the turmoil within me. I knelt down to her level, desperate to snatch back the fleeting moment of normalcy. "Can we hang it on the fridge later?" "Yay!" she exclaimed, twirling in her chair, her laughter ringing like chimes in a gentle breeze. I cherished that sound, even as the shadows loomed ever larger. "Can you do me a favor, sweetheart?" I asked, hoping to tie her close to me, to pull her innocence just a little further from the reach of the dark world encroaching at the edges of our lives. "What is it, Mommy? Can you just stay here with me for a little while? Maybe we can bake more cookies." "Yay! Cookies!" she squealed again, her little hands clapping with delight. As she prattled on about flavors, decorations, and the best sprinkles to use, I couldn't silence the nagging worry that gnawed at me. Richard had mentioned a game. What kind of game? How deep did this go? And what did Lily know that made her so deeply rooted in this dangerous web? I turned to Mark, who stood still with arms crossed, his face a mask of concentration. "We need a plan," he said, his voice low but urgent. "A plan for what?" I questioned, anxiety threading through the question. "We can't just go up against him, he's dangerous. Just hear me out. The more we know about what we're facing, the better we can protect Lily. We need to find out what this is about and what else is at stake. What if it means putting her in even more danger?" I protested, the words spilling out before I could rein them in. "What if digging deeper just brings more monsters to our door?" Mark met my eyes, a flicker of fear mingled with determination reflected back at me. "Then we figure out a way to confront those monsters. Together. We can't let fear dictate our choices." My head spun, caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I wanted to believe we could face this, that our love for Lily would be enough. But every scenario painted a worse picture than the last, stirring an unwillingness to imagine how this string would unravel. As Lily bounced off to the kitchen, gathering ingredients with all the spirit of a child oblivious to danger, I felt the weight of my heart struggling to keep pace with her innocence. The thrill of cookie baking was rampant in the air, competing with the dread shadowing my thoughts. "Okay," I finally said, uncertainty lacing my voice. "We'll dig into this, but we have to tread lightly. For Lily." Mark nodded, and we both exchanged a look of mutual resolve. This was just the beginning. The gripping fear sat heavy in my chest, a constant reminder that even our small victories might be overshadowed by the strength of whatever game Richard was involved in. Not long later, the sweet aroma of vanilla and chocolate wafted through the air as we baked together, laughter filtering through the remnants of tension. Those carefree moments felt like sanctuary against the swirling chaos just outside our door. But even in those fleeting silver lining moments, I felt the gnawing disturbance of Richard's words lingering. What was lurking underneath? What whispers of danger still echoed through the shadows? Hours passed, and finally, dusk began to settle like a cloak around our home. Just as the last cookie batch was cooling, a text chime shattered the momentary peace. I reached for my phone, anxiety clawing at my gut as I glanced down at the screen. "Don't trust the girl. She knows more than you think. Keep her close, it's not safe." My heart plummeted, each word striking me like ice-cold water. Who sent this? How did they know about Lily? Panic flooded my veins as I realized that every moment of joy could be a potential trap. "Mark." I gasped, my voice shaky as I handed him the phone. "Look at this." He read the message, his expression darkening as realization crept over his features. "We need to figure out who's behind this," he said firmly, the earlier resolve transforming into a feeling of impending dread. Just then, I saw Lily peeking around the corner, her chocolate-covered fingers and delighted smile lighting up the dimness. But my heart sank deeper. What secrets was she hiding? As she approached, I felt the world tilt again, unsure how much longer we could keep her innocent and safe. And in that moment, the realization surged within me, building with an unsettling clarity. Each second we remained oblivious could change everything. We had to act fast. The lengths we had gone to protect her had only begun to touch the surface of the storm on the horizon, and I could feel myself caught in the undertow, powerless to stop it. "Mommy, look!" She beamed, holding a cookie high as though it were a trophy of triumph. But in that instant, all I could do was stare into the depths of her wide eyes, battling the storm of fear that swirled around us, waiting for answers that might come at a devastating cost. The evening deepened, shadows stretching across the walls like fingers reaching out from the dark corners of our lives. Lily skipped around the kitchen, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beyond her sunny laughter. The cookie, still raised as her high-stakes prize, trembled slightly in her outstretched fingers, and for a moment, I wanted to reach out and snatch it from her grasp to protect her from the reality that her innocent joy might soon be shattered. "Mommy?" she chirped, her voice cutting through my spiraling thoughts. "Can we make the frosting now?" "Of course, sweetie," I said, hiding the tremor in my voice. I busied myself with bowls and spoons, but the act felt heavy, weighted by the suffocating concern twisted within my chest. Mark stood close by, tension radiating from his frame, another silent participant in the play of family life that felt painfully insincere. As we mixed ingredients together, I tried to focus on the rhythm of the mundane, yet the message loomed like a sword suspended over my heart. Keep her close, it's not safe. Each word echoed ominously in my mind, wrapping around my resolve. Can a mother ever be prepared for the kind of betrayal hidden behind the smiling face of a child? How could I protect her from the ramifications of a game much larger than her playful spirit could comprehend? When the doorbell rang, my heart lurched violently in my chest, interrupting my spiraling fears. Who could it be? A neighbor? A selling agent? Or perhaps someone stepping deeper into the web Richard had spun? "Mommy, I'll get it." Lily raced off and I lunged after her, but Mark's hand caught my wrist, stopping me. "Wait," he whispered, eyes sharp. "Let me. Just stay here." With resolve painting his expression, he moved toward the door, leaving me in a state of profitable paralyzation, the turmoil within me a cacophony I struggled to sort through. Lily's playful giggle echoed from the other side of the door, mixing with the murmur of a stranger's voice. I held my breath, fear taking residence in my chest again. What if it was someone in Richard's league? A pawn sent to observe, to gather information about us? After what felt like an eternity, Mark opened the door a crack, enough for me to glimpse the figure standing outside. A woman, maybe in her late 30s, with kind eyes that seemed enveloped in a layer of apprehension. She stooped down to Lily, who pointed excitedly at the cookies. The wild whirlwind of her childlike innocence was enchanting, and I felt a momentary flicker of hope that maybe this woman wasn't a part of Richard's treacherous world. "Hi there. I'm Sophia," she said, a softness in her voice that glimmered with an unexpected warmth. "I live down the street. I saw the little baker through the window and wondered if I could trade your cookies for some of my muffins. Not to brag, but my chocolate chip ones are pretty darn good." I felt a strange urge to allow this whimsical exchange, a breath of fresh air amidst the thick tension suffocating our home. "Oh. That sounds lovely." I found myself responding before I could debate the wisdom of opening our door. With cautious permission from Mark, who still seemed wary, Sophia stepped over the threshold. As she joined our chaos, laughter seemed to exude from her every movement. There was an almost magnetic quality to her, and for the first time in hours, I felt a hint of warmth in the pit of my stomach, a feeling I had almost forgotten. "Can I help?" she asked, genuine enthusiasm lighting her face up. Lily nodded vigorously, handing her a spatula with sticky fingers, and within moments, the three of us were caught up in an unfurling tableau of flour dust and laughter, as if the shadows had retreated temporarily, appeased by the shared joy. Yet, in the back of my mind, the text replayed on an endless loop. "Don't trust the girl." Was Sophia part of some orchestrated effort, sent to keep watch over us while masquerading as an innocent neighbor? Or was she simply a stranger trying to connect in the wake of our isolation? I tried to push the worry aside, focusing instead on Lily's glowing face as we mixed icing together, her joy infectious. But evening stretched into night, and I couldn't shake the sense of unease that crept back in, tasting bitter against the sweetness of our moment. Suddenly, Mark's phone buzzed quietly from the countertop. I exchanged a glance with him, the panic of being caught off guard blooming in my chest. He reached for it, glancing at the screen, and his expression rapidly shifted. Concern washed over his face, and it felt like the very fabric of our evening began to unravel. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's Richard's number. He wants to see me," he replied, tension suffusing the air once more. "What? No. We can't risk you meeting him," I protested, glancing at Lily, her innocent joy now clouded by the impending darkness that threatened to engulf us all. "Maybe he knows something important." "We have to control the narrative," he said, fury mixing with fear in his gaze. "Control? What if it's a trap? What if he is coming after Lily?" Sophia stepped closer, her expression switching from friendly neighbor to sharp observer. Your daughter is precious, I can see that. But I think you need to listen to your instincts, not just your fear. Mark nodded slowly, as if weighing every word. I might need to meet him, but it can't be alone. If I go, I want you to stay with Lily, he said, turning to face me, and while the idea rolled about in my mind, fear gradually morphed into acceptance. Okay, I whispered, knowing that we were standing at the precipice of a truth that could fracture our lives forever. As darkness thickened outside, I felt the walls close in, heavy with unspoken truths, creating a thick tension in the room. There were so many unanswered questions, and as I stepped closer to Lily, clutching her small hand tightly, whispers of doubt beckoned ominously from the shadows. Could we keep Lily safe? Could this sudden burst of kindness turn genuine, or was it merely another fragile thread trapped within Richard's web? Sophia stood silently on the periphery, a reassuring presence amid the impending storm. But no matter the warmth radiating from her, everything felt like a chaotic maze begging for a way out, and as I looked at my daughter, I realized the depths of our battle were only just beginning. With every heartbeat, as the walls closed in and the shadows lengthened, I knew we stood on the brink of an unimaginable choice, one that could either safeguard our family or bring ruin down upon us, one choice threatening to expose everything we had strived to protect. And deep down, I realized that sometimes, the monsters we face emerge not from the dark but from within our own hearts. The air grew heavy as the weight of unspoken words filled the kitchen. My eyes danced between Lily's blissfully unaware innocence and Mark's troubled gaze, the silence curdling in my throat. Could we truly shield her from the chaos inching closer? Mark's decision to meet Richard felt like a precarious gamble with our lives, but the need for answers loomed larger than my fears. Please be careful, I finally managed to say, my voice faltering as I placed a hand on his arm in a desperate attempt to anchor us both. Always, he replied, offering a thin smile that failed to reach his eyes. Then, as if drawn by some invisible thread, his gaze wandered to Sophia. She stood observing us, clearly sensing the gravity of our conversation, her earlier charm now dampened by worry. Lily, however, remained blissfully engaged, scrambling to construct a tower of cookies, the very symbol of safety and love, but instead, I saw it as a fragile facade. I couldn't bear the thought of the ground beneath us crumbling. I could almost hear the foundations cracking. As Mark reached for his coat, readying himself to face the inevitable confrontation, I felt a shiver snaking down my spine. Do you think he'll really tell you the truth? I pressed, my heart racing as the thought of Richard's charming deception clawed at my mind. He has to, Mark replied, his voice steadying for my sake. It's the only way we can clear our names and protect Lily. With a sinking heart, I watched him move toward the door, each step echoing with a quiet finality. The warmth that had briefly blossomed around us was slowly retreating, leaving behind a frosty starkness. Lily, honey, how about we make those muffins with Sophia while Daddy's out? I suggested, forcing cheer into my tone. I needed to keep her occupied, her smile a shield against the foreboding weight in my chest. Can we, Miss Sophia? She asked, wide-eyed and hopeful, tugging at her apron. Oh, absolutely. I'd love that. Sophia regained her demeanor, and in an effort to act as a buffer against our tense atmosphere, she joined in, her laughter mixing with Lily's childlike chatter. With each playful comment exchanged, I felt the void growing within me, a hollow ache that throbbed amid the sound of their giggles. I couldn't help but think about the paths that twisted through our lives, where shadows danced on the fringes, waiting to ambush us. As Mark opened the door to leave, I caught a glimpse of his face. It was a mask of resolve, but behind it lay a whirlpool of anxiety I wished he wouldn't mask for my sake. With a deep breath, he stepped out, the door clicking shut behind him with a sense of finality. Okay, let's get back to baking. I forced a bright smile, suppressing the worry clawing at my insides. Yet, while I tried to immerse myself in our task, my mind was ensnared in a labyrinth of dread and dark possibilities. Lily was a natural in the kitchen, particularly enthusiastic about rolling the dough, her laughter ringing clear against my heart's heavy beat. Each time her small hand squished the mixture, the joy radiating from her was palpable, a reminder of the innocence we fought so hard to protect, but even amidst the warm aroma of vanilla and chocolate, the ticking clock reminded me of the minutes slipping away, each one filled with uncertain dread of what Mark might discover. "Mommy," Lily said, her small hands covered in gooey batter, "when will Daddy come back?" I paused, the question like a dagger to my chest. "Soon, sweetie. He's just getting some things sorted out." The sincerity in her bright eyes felt like a crushing weight. "Will he bring back more sprinkles?" she asked, obliviously hopeful. "Yes, of course. You love sprinkles," I said, fighting the tears threatening to spill. But as we continued, Sophia's presence seemed to cast a protective spell against my ever-growing fears. She leaned closer to my side, keeping our conversation light, her eyes flickering with genuine concern. "It's going to be okay," she assured me. "I can sense you're worried, but sometimes talking helps." As we chatted, she opened up, sharing a heartwarming story of her own daughter's culinary adventures, and I found the flicker of connection illuminating the darkness around us. Each shared laugh sparked a moment of respite, but the undercurrent of apprehension lingered, a solemn reminder that comfort was fleeting. Just then, my phone buzzed, sending a jolt through my body. I exchanged a hesitant glance with Sophia before checking the incoming message. My heart dropped at the words spread across the screen. "Richard. I know where you are. It's time we talk for real. Alone." My breath caught in my throat, and the world around me blurred. "I can't do this," I whispered, my heart thrumming with panic. "What does he want? What does it say?" Sophia asked, concern etched on her face, sensing the shift in my demeanor. "It's Richard. He wants to talk," I responded, knowing the fear spilling into my voice would not go unnoticed. "Do you think he knows where we are?" The uncertainty in her voice made my own tremors deepen. "I don't know, but I can't risk putting Lily in danger." My pulse raced as I glanced around, seeing the warmly decorated kitchen suddenly feel like a cage closing in on us. Sophia stepped closer, her voice lowering to a whisper. "What if I go with you? I can be your shield, just in case." "No!" I nearly shouted, fear dumping into the space between us. "I can't put you at risk too. I have to face him alone." As I prepared myself to respond to Richard's invitation, my heart pounded with a mix of adrenaline and fear. It felt like a pendulum swinging, and every nerve screamed to run, to protect my child, my precious Lily. But the longer I stared at the message, the more I understood that running didn't mean safety, not when confrontation was inevitable. This moment could be the start of unraveling the tangled threads of deception that threatened to consume us. With shaky hands, I considered my next move, knowing that waiting for Mark to return would not shield us. A surge of defiance ignited. I had to find out what was behind Richard's words, why my gut twisted at the thought of being called out. "Lily, sweetheart, can you help Miss Sophia out here?" I forced my voice to steady. "I'm going to take care of something important." "Okay, Mommy," she chirped, oblivious to my dread. And as I stepped toward the door, glancing back at the kitchen bustling behind me, I felt a chill of finality wash over me. The unknown awaited, and with it came a cascade of questions. Would Richard show himself again? What would he reveal? I took a deep breath, the emotional weight of my decision a powerful anchor as I stepped outside into the night, beckoned by shades of doubt and structure. The shadows were alive and lurking, but it would take more than fear to dim the light I had fought so hard to protect. A lump formed in my throat as I walked away, each step edging closer to a confrontation that could either save us or shatter everything I held dear. And under the vast indigo sky, I braced myself for the darkness within, and without knowing that more was at stake than I could ever allow myself to comprehend. As I stepped onto the porch, the cool night air enveloped me like a painful embrace, an unsettling juxtaposition against the warmth I had just left behind. I could feel each heartbeat echoing in my ears, an ominous drumbeat urging me forward into the abyss. My fingers gripped my phone tightly, its screen glowing like a beacon in the dark as I hesitated at the threshold. I glanced back toward the house, the kitchen filled with the remnants of laughter and the smell of our shared cookies, a small fortress of safety I felt almost guilty leaving behind. With every determined step, shadowy memories cascaded in my mind, reminders of the fragile life we had built, balancing on the precipice of despair. Why had Mark allowed his curiosity to consume us? The notion toyed with the edges of my resolve, gnawing at my gut with uncertainty. But I had told him I'd do this alone, convinced that revealing the truth was the only path back to safety, yet I now questioned if stepping into the lion's den was an act of bravery or reckless abandon. The address Richard had texted me led to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, a hulking structure swallowed by neglected weeds and darkness. The night cloaked me with cover as I approached, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach like a stone. The door loomed ahead, slightly ajar, offering entry like an invitation too sinister to accept. "Breathe," I whispered to myself, desperately attempting to gather the courage that seemed to slip through my fingers like sand. I pushed the door open, its creaking echoing ominously in the desolate space. Inside, it felt cold and void, the shadows flickering as broken light filters seeped through the cracked windows. "Welcome," a voice emerged from the darkness, silky and smooth, filled with a condescending charm that made my skin crawl. Richard stepped forward, illuminated by the slivers of light, an unsettling confidence radiating from him. "I'm glad you could make it, sweetheart. I was beginning to think you might abandon the game." "Cut the chit-chat, Richard. What do you want?" I replied, my voice harder than I felt inside, each word weighted with defiance. He chuckled, stepping further into the light, looking every inch the villain he portrayed. "You're not quite understanding the stakes here. This isn't just about you anymore, this involves your daughter now. You realize that, don't you?" The mention of Lily twisted my heart, anger flaring up as I forced down the flood of anxiety threatening to drown me. "Leave her out of this." "Ah, but she's already involved," he taunted, his demeanor shifting into something threatening and dark. "That little whisper, your daughter speaking truths that could unravel everything, she became an accidental informant. You should thank her for that." My stomach dropped, the realization hitting me like a waking nightmare. "Stop talking about her," I shouted, my composure slipping as panic surged through me. "What do you want from me?" "Just a simple choice," Richard said, a sly smile stretching across his lips. "You can keep digging and risk losing everything, your family, your lives, or you can step into this game with me and find your own path to freedom." He leaned closer, the warmth of his breath feathering against my cheek, the illusion of charm slipping. "But know this, if you dare defy me, I will ensure the consequences are dire. Your little girl. She'll learn what it truly means to pay for someone else's mistakes." Fear coiled around my heart as his words sent a jolt through me, igniting fight or flight adrenaline. "What do you mean?" I gasped, feeling stark terror lacing my veins. "Just a friendly warning," he said, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something vulnerable in his eyes. Was it fear? Desperation? "You can't take on an iceberg with a toothpick, sweetheart. Think carefully." Trembling, I took a step back, slowly realizing that each word he spoke cloaked a web of manipulation designed to ensnare me. My heart thudded violently as I grasped his underlying message. "I will not do your bidding," I said, forcing the words from my mouth with steely determination. "You saw my daughter for who she is, a light shining in your darkness, and you're too cowardly to face the truth." His smile evaporated, and for the first time, I sensed a flicker of true malevolence. "Very well, we'll play it your way. But remember, you chose this path." Just then, a loud noise erupted from the outskirts of the warehouse. The door was kicked open, and Mark burst in, his presence like a gust of wind shattering the tension. "Get away from her!" he bellowed, eyes blazing as he fought against the tide of fear washing over him. Richard's demeanor shifted, surprise giving way to irritation. "You weren't invited, Mark. Our daughter is in danger, and I'll fight any monster who threatens her," Mark responded, without flinching. Brave words, Richard scoffed, but the chill in his gaze cracked slightly. You should know defiance comes at a price. He turned back to me, a satisfied smirk pulling at the corners of his mouth. Will you sacrifice for the ones you love, or will you watch your family be torn apart? I toasted my resolve beneath layers of emotion tearing me apart, desperate to shield Mark and Lily from this nightmare I had unknowingly plunged us into. You can't control us. In that moment, a fire ignited within me, a familiar strength that clashed fiercely with fear. Then suddenly, the air shifted as sirens echoed in the distance, promising salvation. Richard's face fell, and I felt my heart swell with stubborn resolve. As the lights from police vehicles swirled outside, Richard's expression morphed from amusement to rage. You think you've won? He spat, and with sudden decisiveness, he turned sharply to leave, the very essence of threat trailing behind him. Not so fast, Mark shouted, renewed strength radiating from him. You've already lost. And just then, the sound of officer boots echoed against the warehouse floor, shouts ringing from outside as they stormed in, lights flooding the space. Richard glanced back one last time, fury etched onto his face as he swiftly vanished into the chaos, leaving our world teetering between peril and salvation. Mark and I instinctively moved closer to each other, pulses racing, hearts racing, as the officers gathered around us, their hands raised in caution. But it didn't matter, the depth of our bond had outlasted the darkness threatening to consume us, yet even as I released the breath I had not known I was holding, I couldn't ignore the knot of uncertainty still simmering in my gut. Would this be the end or merely the beginning? The shadows of Richard Caldwell might have receded for now, but the scars he inflicted lingered behind, buried deep in the fabric of our lives. As Lily arrived alongside the officers, her innocent gaze filled with wonder, I realized the stakes had shifted. We would rise against the lingering shadows, together, and reclaim our lives piece by piece. Together, we would find solace in the warmth of laughter, stories, and, above all, love. And as we stepped back into our home, our fragile sanctuary, still standing against the night, I felt a newfound resilience blossom within me. For every lingering whisper of danger, there was balance restored, light emerging against the darkness. Yet, deep in my heart, I heard Richard's taunting laughter echoing a threat that would never truly fade away. But together, we would face it all, every whisper that dared to pursue us. After all, love always persevered. With the last of the shadows lingering just beyond our door, I whispered a silent promise to myself and my family. And as I gazed into Lily's bright eyes filled with wonder, I knew that fear would never beat hope, never silence the unyielding spirit of our bond. A new resolve filled my soul, and I held on stronger, determined to face tomorrow, knowing we had already begun our journey of healing and restoration. And as the door clicked shut softly behind us, I came to realize that no darkness could extinguish our light. Sometimes, it takes a whisper of innocence to unveil a whole new world of strength, and we were ready to forge our paths anew. For love, we chose to embrace it, choose it again and again. And we would forever remain bound by its undying spirit that could never be broken.